What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we continue to shine a light on what is going on at training camp. And yesterday, we actually talked about how in the green and white scrimmage, right, the passing game did not look like that good. I mean, Justin Fields was, I think, 2 of 10. It looked like wide receivers were dropping the ball, and that has inspired some anxiety, maybe some consternation around some Jet fans who literally have been talking about, like, who's going to be the wide receiver two? What do we still need to do in the pass game? I have been saying, don't get too crazy about this. I do not think we're trading for Terry McLaurin in the same way I never thought we were going to sign a guy like Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen or anything like that. I think the Jets have what they need. It just may not look exactly like you are thinking. First of all, this is going to be a run-heavy team anyway, right? And that part of the offense apparently looked good in the scrimmage. The idea that they were able to move people off the ball. We've talked about this offensive line and the kind of multiple ways we can address people in the run game. But I do want to give some positive reports in the pass game because there are some other pass game options out there that we still need to consider. And really the first one is Bree Hall out of the backfield, okay? Bree Hall last year was one of the better receiving backs in the NFL. I mean, he was top 5 in receiving yards, receptions, yards per reception, explosive catches out of the backfield, touchdowns out of the backfield. And what's interesting is I put Jahmyr Gibbs' numbers also next to Bree Hall because Gibbs, remember, played this similar role in the Detroit offense, right? And I think that Bree Hall is really going to be featured this year. And listen, Aaron Glenn said the same thing. We caught him on a hot mic during practice talking to Bree Hall, and literally he goes, that's where you're going to open up your game this whole year. Not just running the ball, but being able to do something like that. You dig what I'm saying? That's an effing mismatch. Take you over anybody out there, any safety or any linebacker. And I really believe that we are going to see Bree Hall as a threat in the pass game. Maybe this wide receiver too, whether it's Josh Reynolds or somebody else, is not going to have impressive stats. But when you think about what Bree Hall can do out of the backfield, a la Jahmyr Gibbs, a la an Alvin Kamara, for example, in this league, I think that is an additional weapon along with a guy like Mason Taylor at the tight end position, right? And Bree Hall said it as much himself. Remember, early in the offseason, I talked about here on Jets Latest that Bree Hall has said his goal is to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. Only I think Marshall Faulk and his third cousin, Roger Craig, has done that before. So Bree Hall is definitely going to be featured, and that is going to be a big piece of this passing game. And another piece that I think people may be undervaluing, there continue to be positive reports about the rookie out of Georgia, Arian Smith, okay? And Aaron Glenn was asked about him the other day after practice, like, yo, he's consistently getting open. Yo, he's making some plays. And what did Aaron Glenn have to say about Arian Smith? And I love this. This is Aaron Glenn again, riding for his guys. He goes, you mean the guy that can't catch? What did you guys say? Arian Smith has continued to improve. He's not where he needs to be, but he's doing a really good job for us. Obviously, you see his speed out there. But the thing that shows up to me more than anything is his ability to catch in traffic. And also, his ability to understand exactly who he has to tackle and mark when it comes to blocking and being a pretty physical when it comes to that aspect. I think that, once again, is on brand for Aaron Glenn, right? Kind of a little combative with the media, also riding with his guys, being like, oh, that guy who can't catch, but saying he's improved, praising the work that he's putting in, but also saying he's got a lot left to go, right? The standard is still the standard. And I like that Aaron Glenn always highlights something that you wouldn't necessarily think. Arian Smith is a smaller guy, a speed guy, but showing that he's doing well in the blocking game, well understanding what he's supposed to do. So I thought it was on brand for Aaron Glenn, and it's also nice to hear that Arian Smith is working on that drop issue that plagued him in college. We heard Quincy Enunwa talk about how that was something he had to work on in college. Again, the comparison over to the Detroit Lions, when I talk about Bree Hall, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of, okay? When I talk about Arian Smith, it's Jamison Williams, another speed burner out of the SEC who also struggled with drops coming out of college and is now really being perceived as one of the ascending wide receivers in the NFL. And check this out. I thought this was interesting. Arian Smith also says he wears strobe goggles during off the field hand-eye exercises to improve his focus while catching the ball. Once again, the teaching techniques are there in this new green and white era, in this new Jets culture. So I know a lot of people are worried about the wide receiver too and what the passing game is going to look like. But listen, you got Brees out of the backfield. You got Mason Taylor, who consistently is making plays left and right in training camp. Guys like Arian Smith. And then we'll see what happens. I still think Josh Reynolds is a nice, solid, reliable, kind of wide out on the outside opposite Garrett Wilson. So then there's Lazard, then there's Corley, there's guys like Rashard Smith who are showing out in camp a little bit, but we are still going to be able to put it together. The last thing I want to talk about here on Jets Latest, one of the focus areas we have talked about time in, time out, that Aaron Glenn is focusing on in training camp is this attention to detail, right? The penalties. Unfortunately, we saw them in the green and white scrimmage, but the officials being there, him pulling guys off the field if they commit pre-snap penalties, right? The consistent talk we hear about that as a focus. Everybody, it seems like, to a man, understanding that the Jets were an undisciplined, heavily penalized team over the last couple of years with the last regime, and that being something they have to fix. Well, add safety Tony Adams to the list of people who are now explicitly talking about this. Listen to what Adams had to say. He goes, "We were the most penalized team in the NFL last year, and that was on us as players." Listen to this line. "Our last coaches preached discipline, and we weren't listening. We didn't take heed to what they were saying. Coach G is making it an emphasis that we have to cut down on the penalties because penalties lose games." I think guys have been taking that message, and you have to lock in on the detail. And what's interesting to me is that's like the same terminology even that Aaron Glenn is using, right? He's talking about undisciplined loses game. We talk about attention to detail, locking in, that sort of stuff. It is clear that Aaron Glenn is reinforcing this time and time again, and everybody is talking about it as a priority with that same focus. And quite frankly, it is another way that you see current Jets or Jets that have been here for a little while giving a little bit of shade to what it used to be like in the last regime. And you see it again. Listen, last year, 8.1 penalties per game. The year before that, 7.3 penalties a game. Both of those were the most in the NFL. So it becomes a clear focus to be sure. We'll see if they can carry that out onto the field. I know one thing is that Aaron Glenn definitely wants to knock it out, and that will be a focus. So that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Remember, watch these videos, like these videos, subscribe, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, and hit me up in the comments. I enjoy reading your comments. I enjoy engaging with you. And listen to what a couple people had to say about this culture. First of all, Robert T. Lichtek, 3193, says, "The Robert Saleh Country Club has officially left town." Aaron Glenn came in the front door handing out pink slips, starting with the Geritol Bandit and his personal consigliere, Nathaniel Hackett, right? And that's like putting it right there. Like, the country club is the way it was, and Aaron Glenn is very different. Sharon McLean, big shout out to the regular Sharon McLean, says, "Welcome to the Glennaissance." That's a nice term, right? With Aaron Glenn hopefully being a renaissance for this team and the attention to detail. But here's another take on it that I do want to give both sides on. Old Dude 979 says, "Before we crown Aaron Glenn Emperor of the North, let's just see if he can win some games. Otherwise, his so-called new culture is just Kool-Aid designed to hype up the faithful. I have gone through 70 training camps," Old Dude 979, right? "And I am tired of the annual BS. Is AG the man? He was handed a team with a great foundation and a win-now attitude. Only thing he needed was a quarterback and a right tackle. Can he win? I know it's early, but tackling and contact does not translate to wins. Good OCs and DCs do. And he's a rookie head coach like Saleh was, like Belichick was in Cleveland, and they usually don't fare well." He said he's hoping for results, and if he could even get the results of someone like a Herman Edwards, 3 playoffs in 5 years, he will take that. And I think it's a good point, right? We're talking here about the culture, about the hype, about how it feels different, but let's see what happens actually on the field. And quite frankly, in the green and white scrimmage, there were still penalties. The passing game still didn't look good, right? So I do feel like it's different. I do feel like there's a certain pride. I do feel like this is the beginning of a Glennaissance or a turnaround, but we do have to take it with a grain of salt, and we got to see what happens actually this year if the product on the field takes root. And that may take some time, so let's be patient, Jets fans. But you could be patient while watching Jets Latest, because every single day I am going to be here bringing you the news, the analysis, the quotes, the stats, the feel of the Jets, Jets. And if you want to hear more from me, spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, it is now fantasy football season to be sure, and I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM Channel 87, the Fantasy Channel, answering your questions, giving you rankings, giving you draft strategies, and everything you need to win your leagues and win that cash. FTN Fantasy is a great site. Check them out. Rankings, waiver wire stuff, a lot of tools, simulations, Stats Hub, which get some of the stats that I bring you here on Jets Latest, and so much information that you can really better understand what you need to be a better fantasy player and a better sports bettor, in fact. But listen, hit me up in the comments. I love engaging with y'all. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We'll be here all this week, because at the end of the week and in the weekend, we've got a preseason game, and we'll see how it looks against the Green Bay Packers. I'll talk to you guys later on this week, but for this episode of Jets Latest, we out of here. Peace.